exponential functions, which is essentially just putting an x into the exponent instead of having an x with an exponent. So, what is an exponential function? Well, it's a function that has at least one term with an x in an exponent, which means you have to have something that looks like this. Now, keep in mind, you can have this plus x squared plus other things, so on and so forth. There's also the equation x raised to the x, which we're not going to deal with because that can get complicated and difficult to deal with, and probably not going to be too prevalent. Now, some properties of exponential functions is, first of all, they grow at a much faster rate than other functions. So even if you have x to the 5th or x to the 100th, eventually an exponential function is going to be bigger than that. Now, why do we care about these? Because they can be used to deal with situations that deal with interest, particularly on loans, savings accounts, and other monetary situations. Almost any type of situation where it gives you a rate where you earn money will be solved using an exponential equation. So this is actually one of the most important things that we'll be learning in this class. So how do we calculate interest? This is something you should all pay attention to. Well, you need to know a few things. First, you need to know the initial amount that's going into the account, which this is usually for P0 or P0. So it's the principal at time 0. So that's why there's a subscript 0. You need to know what the rate is, so what the interest rate is, whether it's 5%, 6%. You need to know it. Also need to know how often the interest is calculated per year. So if interest is calculated once per year, which is also termed annually, n would be 1. Semi-annually, n is 2. Quarterly is 4. Then there's monthly, daily, secondly. There's an infinite number of possibilities. So however often it's compounded, that's going to be n, and keep in mind that's per year. And here's our compounded interest formula. The principal at time t, so the p of t, is equal to the initial principal times 1 plus r over n. So r is again our rate, divided by how often it gets compounded, raised to n times t. Be careful about putting this into your calculators, because if you just do 1 plus r over n in parentheses raised to nt, it could raise it to n and then multiply by t, which we do not want that. We want the n and t in the exponent. So make sure you keep those together. And also the p naught, or the initial principal, is not getting raised to the exponent. So make sure you do not end up raising it to the exponent by mistake. Feel free to use plenty of parentheses when typing these into your calculator. So let's take a look at an example of how one of these works. So consider a student loan for $10,000. That's about how much it costs to attend CMU for a year, with an interest rate of 3.5%. Might be high, might be low. It depends on your credit score. Compounded semi-annually. Now, what does compounded mean? That means twice a year they will calculate how much interest you owe and tack it onto your principal. So after more time progresses, it's going to get more and more interest if you don't end up paying anything off. And then you want to know how much this loan will cost after 4 years. College lasts 4 years. Kind of important. So we have our initial of $10,000, our rate of 3.5%. If we turn that into a decimal, you have to move the decimal place 2 spots over, so the rate becomes 0.035. Semi-annually, that means n is 2. It gets compounded twice a year. And after 4 years, so our t, so time, is 4. And if we plug this into our equation, see a nice come out of 11,488.8178. Keep in mind, this is money, so you only want 2 decimal places. And when you are dealing with the amount of money that you owe, round it up. If it is the amount of money that you are getting, round it down. Never want to overestimate the amount of money you're getting or underestimate the amount of money that you have to pay. That can leave you in a bad situation. So we'll be dealing with this in class. Hopefully you guys pay a lot of attention to this, because this was by far the most useful thing for any of you, regardless of what you're doing in the future. See you in class.